Good morning, everyone. How's everybody this morning?
Good morning, Michael.
Morning.
Morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Good
Good morning,
morning.
Michael.
How are
Okay,
you doing today, Michael?
Good
fantastic.
morning.
Morning. Well, the good news is it's another day, and it's not Monday any longer, which is nice. So hopefully you're beginning to have some fun with Excel. The only thing you can really do that will help you a tremendous amount is to learn to play, just like you're a child again. I've often give this example. I give it again. A lot of people believe that children are they learn super fast. The truth of the matter is scientifically they learn very slowly, but they add to what they learn. And the same thing is true with an adult. You actually do learn really fast. In fact, many times faster than a child does. And the reason is very simple. You have more to add to. So it's just a question of learning how to add new information. And the fastest way of doing that, believe it or not, is just to have fun, just to become excited about what you're learning and try to experiment and say, I could try this and I could try that, and this would happen. And let's see what happens if I click here. Because that's going to give you the most advantage is recognizing where things are and where they're located and what you can do with them. When a person is really good at any kind of task, it's just a question of a whole bunch of little bits and pieces brought together. And that's what gives them the advantage. They have more simply because they experiment more, they play more. If you've ever watched a child playing a video game, it doesn't take long before they end up mastering it and get kind of bored. And the simple reason is because they just don't care if they win or lose. They're just going to keep doing it until they master that particular thing, whatever it happens to be. And that's the same way you should be. Just keep experimenting and click on everything. So, fortunately, with what I'm teaching you and also what is on Cengage, and of course some of the additional information in the book as well. So hopefully you've taken a look at that book and you've started to go through it a little bit. You'll find there's a lot of exercises in there as well. So it's a lot of information. But I really think that the best way is open up Excel on your desktop or your laptop and just play. Click on everything you can possibly click on and find out what happens because you can't harm the program. All you can do is just screw up a document. Well, no big deal. Just reload it again and start over. So you can have lots of fun with all the programs in, let's say, Microsoft and any program you come into contact with in the future. It's a great tool is just to use your imagination and also to use a little bit of passion behind learning. Just excite yourself about it. So what I wanted to do this morning is, and I'm only going to cover a couple of things, and then I'm going to send you back to Cengage. Right now, you should be able to see my desktop. Just shout out if you can't see it. Should be able to see it. Fantastic. So what I wanted to do was kind of go over a few things that I had talked about yesterday. Just going to maximize that. Remember, every one of these cells, you can actually do amazing things with them. So I'm just simply going to type in here, and you can do the same thing with a blank, is I'm going to type in my name, and I'm going to make that plural, and I'll put in pet store. There we go. Now, some of you have seen some of this before. So this is my pet store. And you know, it kind of overlaps into the next cell. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to click on that and drag it across to, oh, let's say H. I'll drag it across to H. And remember, I said this before, when you select a variety of cells, then the first cell will always be clear, but the other cells that you've selected will actually be grayed. And that shows you that you've selected that whole area. But the key information here is that box, that rectangle around it with the little tiny square in the right-hand corner at the very bottom. That tells you it's a single cell. So I'm just going to merge it, and I'm going to be easy about this. I'm going to click on Merge and Center. We could have chosen something specific, and I want you to click on all of these so eventually you get an idea of what they all do. I'm just going to choose Center. I'm going to change the size of the font. Now I have two ways of doing that, actually three ways of doing this. I could actually just simply click on this down arrow and choose a size that I would like. Oh, look at that. Can you see me now? Or since it's highlighted right now, and I could just simply highlight it, I can type in a value. So I'm going to type in 27. There you go. And then I'll press Tab, which will accept whatever value I put into a cell. Now I could press Enter as well, but Tab is good enough. There you go. Now you also notice that you have this cell here, this icon, which is a capital A, a very large A. If I click on it, it will increase the size. If I click on the one beside it, it will decrease the size. So this is actually to my advantage to be able to use all of these different elements. And of course, all the other elements are here, the color of the font. And once again, by placing my cursor over it, I don't have to click on it, but I can see fundamentally what would it look like. And it will also give me a tooltip. Now those tooltips can be turned off. And that's something we'll deal with much, much later, that you can actually control how this whole interface works. For some of you who become really, really good at doing, let's say, any kind of Microsoft product, working with it, you'll often notice that when you actually put your mouse over something, it'll often tell you that there is a keyboard shortcut. And some of you can get to the point where you no longer need the ribbon entirely. And you could literally give yourself a lot of extra real estate, like turning off the thing and then start working, and you have lots of space available to you. But it means you need to know a little bit about the keyboard and what it's capable of. Now, one of the other things I kind of illustrated yesterday was that you can use the keyboard, and there are certain things that you want to remember about it. One is Control and Z will actually undo. Control and Y will redo. So it's like going backwards or going forward. So I could actually use Control Z on the keyboard, which I'm doing right now. And that will take me back one step. And if I press it again, by holding onto that Control key and just keep pressing, it will constantly go backwards until I get back to the original size 27 that I set. And if I wanted to, I could go up to the very top to the quick access toolbar, which is this little teeny weeny one at the top. And I could actually use the drop downs to go back to the point where I wanted to go back. Now, the bad part of this is you can't choose individually, but you can go backwards and decide how far back you want to go. So this is a really nice little tool. And in addition to that, the Control Y, or using this one, allows us to go forward. So I can actually go back to a much larger size of font if I want to. So using the keyboard or using the shortcuts up here is actually to your advantage, and it does speed up the process rather dramatically. But there is something else that I wanted to touch upon today, and that was selection. How you go about selecting something. So I'm just simply in A2, I'm going to type in name, and then I'm going to press tab to jump to the next cell, and I'm going to type in quantity. Actually, I'll type in code. That's a little bit better. And then I'll go to here and I'll say month. Fantastic. Now, there's a lot of different things we could actually type in here when we come to month. maybe what I really want to do is put in a variety of different months. So if I put in January, Jan, and I just recognize January, then I can actually take this and drag it down, and you'll notice that the tooltip keeps changing. So it'll actually put in those dates for me. We could actually go a step further. In fact, we could actually put in the weeks as well. So maybe here I'll put in week 1. I'll put in week 1. Actually, there's a better way of doing that. Let me just put week up here. Okay, so there's week. And I'm just going to put in 1. And then I'll drag this sideways because I'd like to have 4 weeks. And remember, I can use the little fill to make a series. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4. And I could actually, if I wanted to, I can copy this down so that each one of them have 4. So it's kind of nice that I can actually choose large groupings here. I'll put in cat. Let's put in dog. And let's put in mouse. And we'll put in fish. And then we'll put in rabbit. Yeah, whatever. And then we'll put in, what could come after that? Fish, mouse, birds. Birds. Birds are terrible little creatures. Squirrel. No, let's put in something else. Let's leave it the way it is. I can't think of anything. So cat, dog, mouse, fish, rabbit, and birds. And then for a code, we could put in, let's say 001. And of course, I'd like this to be a series too. So I'm just going to copy this down. And then I'm going to change it. And I will change it to fill. And because remember I told you before, anytime you put a 0 into a general, and this is a general code format in the background, I'm going to change this to number because this will allow me to have those zeros in there. And I'm going to have to change that to 001. And I'll drag that down. I may have to change this to, I'm going to have to change it again. So let me change it to text. We can still use that. Oh, yeah. Fantastic. 001. Fantastic. So here's something else I wanted to kind of cover as well. I've changed this to text so that I can actually see the 00 in front of the number 1. However, whenever you put in text, it automatically aligns itself to the left-hand side. Whenever you type in a number, it automatically aligns itself to the right-hand side. So we can see that here, that it actually is on the left-hand side. And if I click on that, it says it's text. If I click on over here where there's a number, you'll see it's general, and I can change that to number if I want to. So I'm just going to make this one a little bit smaller. Fantastic. I'm going to make code a little bit smaller. And this one here, I'm going to make a little bit smaller. And of course, I would like to have these ones a little bit smaller as well. But to do that, I'm going to just highlight them. If I click on the identifier of the column and I drag it sideways, I can select all of these. And therefore, I can use Format on the Home tab. And I can come in here and I can actually decide what the column width should be. So if I click on it, it's going to tell me how much it is at present, which is 8.43. And I'm going to change that to, let's say, 4. Okay, so 4 characters wide. And I'll click on it. And now they're all 4. So it kind of helps you speed up the process a little bit to make it a little bit nicer looking. Now, there's a few other things that are kind of important that we haven't touched on yet, and we will be touching on them again later as well. And that is, what if I want to copy something? So maybe I want to copy the, let's say the month. So I can come down here and I can select all of this. That whole section is now selected. And I have several options here. I can copy by clicking on the Home tab, and there's two little pieces of paper here in the clipboard. I can choose this if I want to, and I can copy. And it'll put these little dancing ants around it. They're running around it right now. And now I can come anywhere I want to in the document, and I can simply paste. Now I could right click and paste. Okay, so right click, and there are some paste options here, including special pasting, which is actually very important for us as well a little bit later. Or I could actually come up here to the clipboard area and choose in here that I would like to copy and paste. Now I'm just putting my mouse over it so I can see what it looks like. In fact, I'm going to make one more adjustment to it. Hold on. To make one more adjustment here. I'm going to change, let's say, I think I just lost it. Hold on. Yay. Okay, I'm just going to paste it over here quick. Well, I'm not going to do that either. Finally, it released it. Okay, so I'm just going to change the formatting in the background. And I will change the formatting of each one of these as well. All but one. Let's just leave one. Okay, the last one, July. And I'm going to change the color. Let's say green. There you go. So now when I copy this, this is why I'm doing this, is because there are elements within it that I may want to copy as well. This time I'm going to right click and copy. Now I could also use Control and C as well. C as in cat will actually do the same thing, copy, or I can copy up here in the clipboard. And when I want to paste, now I get to choose many different styles of pasting. And by simply putting my mouse over them, I get a better idea as to what it will actually look like. So, whoops, let me go back. Oh, I did it again. I seem to have a problem with this version. Okay, let's come back here again. So once again, if I use this first one, first option to paste, it pastes the format as well. Now, it doesn't change the size of the cells, but it does paste all the format in the background and any kind of calculations or formulas that might be there as well. In addition, the next one just copies formulas. So the content plus the formula will actually be there. And the next one, whoops, and the next one, it just opened up the clipboard. Next one is format with the number formatting. So format that's going to be in there, any formulas that are going to be in there. And the next one is it just keeps the source. Now, keep in mind, you may have a destination design as well. Maybe, in fact, maybe what we can do is do that as well. So I'll just come over here and I'll put in a different style. Let's put in fact, the top will make it purple instead. There you go. So purple is there. So if I were actually going to paste in this case, and let me copy this again. Okay, there you go. And let's get rid of that clipboard. I'm going to copy. And now when I actually want to paste here, okay, and there's lots of, let me do it the other way. So I'll come over here. There you go. So when I want to paste here, I have a choice. I can either use the original formatting, and you notice the source here is orange on the top and then green underneath. However, I could actually use the new formatting as well, which is not, it's got a purple top to it. So it's actually using the formatting of the new locality. Or we could use the source formatting, which is going back to the original color. This is really a fascinating tool because it has so many different options that are available. If I wanted borders, well, you notice I do have these little tiny gray borders, but I won't have any borders if I use this paste option. And in fact, we can actually go on and say, keep the source column width as well. So it'll actually change the width of the actual document section as well. Let me just make this smaller so we can really see what that is. So now it's down quite a bit. And when I come down in here, and once again, I look at that, notice how it's now completely compressed, that particular column. And of course, we can decide, wait a minute now, I didn't want it to be vertical, I wanted it to be horizontal. Now, there are other functions that do the same thing here, and we'll be exploring some of those. But in this case here, I could decide, wait a minute, I'd like to flip it a little bit at this point, so I'm going to flip it. And here's the other really fascinating part of this. I'm going to create a new sheet. Okay, so let's create a brand new sheet. Here's a brand new sheet, the original sheet, and now a new one. And if I wanted to paste it here on another sheet entirely, I can do that. I can come in here and actually paste it. Let's just come in here. And I can now begin to paste in this particular location as well. So there are a lot of tools that are relatively available for me that I can play around a little bit and figure out what kind of a condition am I really trying to set up here. And again, pictures, well, picture with a link or just a picture itself. In other words, you cannot modify this list once you actually paste it, because this list now as a picture is just a picture, so you can't change what's inside of it. And also we could just link it so that you make a change in the other sheet, it'll change this sheet as well. And of course, the formatting, we only want the formatting, we didn't want anything else to come with it. So this is really a fascinating tool. And what really makes it even better still is the fact that you have the clipboard. Now, one thing I want you to remember, I have said this in the Word course, but I'm going to say it again in this particular course. With the clipboard in Office, you have the ability to copy 25 times, 24 in total. 25th time, it will replace the first one. And if I were using just Windows, I could copy once only, but I can then paste indefinitely. And the next time I copy something, it removes the original image that I had the first time. So now I can paste it as many times as I want. But here it will retain that information. So if I copy this as well, you'll notice it adds it to the clipboard. And anywhere I want to, I can just paste that. So here I can actually add more and more things that I would like to ensure are in the clipboard that later on, somewhere else entirely, I could decide to actually paste that information. And once again, I have a lot of control over it because of this dropdown. I can either delete it, get rid of that from the clipboard, or I can actually just come in here and paste something new in there. So this is a beautiful feature. Now, there are other things here as well. Control X on the keyboard, which actually allows you to cut. When you cut, it copies it to the clipboard, but it removes it. So right now I have this selected, this area of month, January, etc. And if I were to simply cut that, it will remove that particular content. So we can actually cut it out of there entirely. And that means it is now history. However, the formatting, remember, one thing I told you about formatting before, formatting is a unique aspect that is layered within a cell. So this means that I have to come up to clear and actually clear that on the Home tab. So clear all, it will take it away. And now that cell is empty. And I can do the same thing here. I can simply make sure that all the formatting, everything in the background is gone. One of the other things that sometimes is overlooked is the ability to actually shift information. So here I'm going to take the code and I can actually move this. Now, if I put my mouse around the actual perimeter, which is this green line all the way around it, you'll notice that I get a four-headed arrow. And if I hold down the left button of the mouse on that line, I can actually move that content somewhere else. So this is something that sometimes is overlooked, that you do have the ability to make some significant changes. Let's say I wanted to move this whole section. Oops, and I wanted to move it over one so that I can play with something else here. I can just shift it over here and we'll put it over there. And now I have extra space available here as well. So this is actually really nice that there are some additional factors that you can play around with. However, there's something else that's actually important that you understand as well. And that's when you want to insert. Maybe you forgot to put a column in, or you forgot to put a row in. So one thing I want you to remember is that little triangle up here on the right-hand side at the very top. This little triangle suggests that if I click on it, the whole sheet is selected. However, if I wanted to create a new column, let's say that in front of A, I wanted to have a brand new column so I could put in, let's say, serial number. Or let's say in front of code, I wanted to put the quantity. Or I wanted to put in the age of the animal. What I could do is simply click on B. It selects the whole column. And now there are several ways of doing this. On the Home tab, there is Insert. And if I click on Insert, it recognizes it is a column I want to include. Or I can use the drop down, which says here that I can actually insert a new column. And you'll notice row is not available because we haven't selected a row. It's all the rows. So column or cell, be very careful of cell. You play with it and you'll figure out why. I think that's a better way of learning about it. And then, of course, we could insert a new sheet, or we could place that little plus button, or we could right click on the sheet and that would do the same thing. So here I've selected a column and I can now insert. I could actually right click as well. So let me just click on B again, and I can right click and you'll see insert is here as well. So there are many different ways of inserting a new column. Now I've chosen one. So if I click, it'll insert one column, and there's my new column. It's empty and everything else is moved backwards. Now it's important that you understand the direction because they're all working towards that triangle. I'm going to call this the origin of the sheet, and everything when I insert, it's going to move towards the origin. So it's going to place something in there. And the same is true here. I'm going to choose doggy. So that line, and I'm going to insert a new row, and that row will appear before dog and cat. So it's going to move towards the origin. So there it is there. So now I have a new column and I have a new row. However, and this is why it's an important element. Let's just say that I've decided, wait a minute now, I need 2. Or I need 3, or I need 4, or what have you. I'm going to take 2 for the moment. So I highlight B and C, or I could highlight F, G, or here's a really good one for you. I could take B and I could take, let's say, D. So I'll hold down the Control key on the keyboard, and I'll click on D. Now I'm going to show you why that's important in a moment, but this allows me to choose without sequence. In other words, they do not have to be contiguous. In other words, B and C or C and D, etc. They can actually be different. Take them apart, choose other columns entirely. So here I have the 2 of them, D, and I've held down the Control key. I've clicked on B, and I'd like to have a new column between C and D and another one between A and B. And I know that when I insert, it's automatically going to insert towards that triangle. So I'm going to click on Insert, and there you go. Now I have a brand spanking new column here, but it didn't put a new column here. It actually created a new column here, which is a little unusual. It should have done the opposite. So I'm going to have to check and see what happened. Okay, so let me just go backwards a little bit here. Let's drag that back to where it was. Fantastic. Okay, so that shows me that I can actually choose several columns and I can insert and it will insert the same number of columns. So there's two I selected and there's two new ones. And that goes for rows as well. So I can actually choose as many as I need. So you're never at a loss. If, for instance, you've forgotten a column, just add one. If you forgot a row, just add one. And if I needed, let's say 3, well, I'll put in 3 here. And I'll just simply insert, and now I have 3 brand new rows as well. The only important part is to remember it will always be towards that triangle or the origin. That's the important element here. So copy and paste, and there's lots of different ways of pasting. And maybe what I really wanted was just the format. So I can copy the format. I'm just clicking on this one cell, doesn't matter which one. Actually, let's click on the orange one here. And I'm just going to use the format painter. And just like Word, it does exactly the same thing. So I can apply this somewhere. But I can only apply it once. Unless, let me just go backwards. Unless I double click it. If I double click that format painter very quickly, then I can apply this as many times as I want to. So let me just jump back. I went a little bit too far there. Okay, so let me just click on this cell again. Oh, we seem to have an issue here for some reason. There you go. Okay, so I'm just clicking on it twice so that it is now it's not highlighted. Why isn't it highlighted? There, it's highlighted. So now I can apply it as many times as I want to, and I can apply it anywhere I want to, but it will not stop doing this until I click it again. And you notice it's still highlighted up here. So if I click it again, it turns it off. And now if I click on something, nothing happens. But if I wanted to, again, double click, and it's on again, and now I can just keep putting it in here until I'm finished putting it in. Let's just put a couple more in there. There you go. And I don't want it anymore, so I want to get rid of that little paintbrush. I just click on it one more time, and now it's gone. So it is possible to use this format painter exactly the same way it's used within Word. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Now I'm just going to undo a few things, and you'll notice my list is quite substantial here. There you go. So I'm just undoing all of that. That's a nice feature. I love that feature, by the way. So the other thing that I wanted to point out here, and I'm just going to select all of this, and I'm going to copy it across so I have a little bit more content. There we go. And I'm just going to reformat that a little bit. Column width was 4. Fantastic. There we go. So now I have lots of content here. And one of the things I wanted to kind of display to you was you can actually select things in a very unusual way. And it's important to recognize that this is going to be useful when you're using your keyboard and the mouse. And yet you don't really have to use the mouse, but we're going to use both. So in this case here, I'm going to use the first key. I want to have that cell, and I'd like to have all the cells down to the last one. So I'm going to hold the Shift key, and I'm going to click on the very last cell that I want to select. And you'll notice that they all are selected immediately. So if I click on this one, and I only want to come to this one over here, then I just hold the Shift key and I click on it, and now they're all selected. So anything that's selected can actually be modified or altered in any particular way you want. But you know something? There are times when you don't want to do it that way. You want to just select certain things. So this is where I click on a cell. I now hold down the Control key after I've selected it. And now I can go in and select other parts that I would like to have as well. Maybe I just wanted to have this section and maybe just that number. So now all of these are selected. And to prove that, I can change the color in the background. Actually, let's do something a little different. Let's put in a different color font. Let's put something you'll see. There you go. And I'll bold it because you're still selected. There you go. And I'll put some color in the background because you're still selected. What do you think? Blue, orange? I like the orange. We'll put the orange in. So by using the control key, I can select non-contiguously. So in other words, I don't have to choose all of them in a sequence. I can, or a range, I should say, but I can choose them at any interval I want to. So if I want cat, I click on cat, hold down control, and maybe I want to choose fish and also mouse because they're all connected. Well, bird maybe too. Birds are nasty little critters. For those of you in the word class, you remember why I said birds are nasty little critters. And of course, I can then change the color in the background. So maybe I can change just those ones. If I didn't do it that way, I would click on cat and then change cat and then go to mouse and then change mouse. But the fastest way is to select what you want and then simply to modify it. Now, if I hold the shift key down now that I've selected the first one, it actually means that I can select the whole row contiguously. Go ahead, Joyta.
Yeah, I guess this is an awesome way to select and highlight things, something we didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. This will speed things up astronomically, especially if you had formulas. Let's just say I wanted to add a formula here at the end. Okay, so I wanted to add them up. Well, the easiest way to add them up is to use summation. And I showed you yesterday we could use sum, but there's another way of doing that as well. We could use the auto sum up here, which if I click on it, automatically looks and says, well, these are numbers, but January is not a number, so I won't include it. Anything with a colon between the two variables actually will add all of them together. But there was another way of doing that. So let me just back up and I'll remove that for a moment. So the auto sum, I could have typed it in. Remember, when you put equal in, you can add anything you want after it to calculate. But we could also use this variable here, which is the fx that's on the function line itself. This little f of x allows me to choose from any number of possible, let's say, different formulas that are available. And there are a lot of them. These are just categories. So when you click on one of these, you're going to get a whole fleet of different calculations. I'd like to choose sum. So sum is here. Click on it, make sure it's there. It tells you underneath what it does. And if you need more information, you can click on this little link and it will give you more information about it. But I'm going to click on it. It tells me that one number with a comma and the next number with a comma, it'll add them together. But when there's a colon, it takes the entire range. So I'm going to click OK. And now it tells me it automatically has decided it's that row that I want. Let's just double check. D3, yep, that's D, and that's number 3. And it went all the way across to K3, which is exactly what it says here. And it also tells me how much it adds up to before I commit myself to it. So the formula's result is already 36. Now we could add a second range here. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to say I'd like to add the second range. Well, we know it's 36. And if I add this range by simply dragging my mouse across, remember the comma's there, so it's adding the second group to it as well. And now it's got the second range. So if I close that, it now says the total is 36 and 36 are 72. And that's exactly what it came up with. And it says, wait a minute, now do you want to put any more in? Yeah, what the hell, let's put another one in. So I'll put in the third row as well. And now you can see that the comma is there, so it's going to add another row as well. And therefore, if I just click on the little X to close that, it says, yep, now the number is 108. And of course, why don't we play a little game here? You and I just discovered we can use that shift key. So since we've already chosen the first 3 rows, let's choose the remaining 4 rows. So what I'm going to do is just click on this little icon. And I'm going to select the last 4. And I'll just simply drag it down here. Okay, and I've dragged the whole section. And you can see that here it says from D6, which is right here, all the way down to K9. So it's now taken that whole range. And when I press enter, it now shows me that it is now 256. Well, let's prove that that's true. I'm going to accept it, okay? Because that's basically all these numbers. Now let's do it again. So this time over here, I'm going to type in equal. I'm going to type in sum. Okay, I'll put in a bracket, and I will now select from here, and I'll hold the shift key down because I'm lazy, and I'll click down here. So I've clicked on this whole range. If this is correct, it should be exactly the same number. And I'll press enter, and it's exactly the same number. So using that shift is really fascinating. What if I decided not to? So let's do it one more time. So I'll type in sum, and I'll put a bracket. And this time what I'd like to do is I'm going to choose that one. I'm going to hold down the control key. I'm going to choose only the ones in orange. Okay. Notice what it's doing is putting a comma between each of the ranges. And I'll choose this here, and then I'll choose this here. I'm still holding that control key. Now I release the control key, and I can close that bracket. And now when I press enter, only the orange numbers are all actually tabulated, and there's 72 in total. So you can use Control Shift in a variety of different ways, but the key element here when it comes to using this particular formula, and let me just close that up a little bit, and I'm just going to zoom up on my selection on this here. I want you to notice one thing very, very specifically, and that is that between each variable that it's going to add up, it's going to put a comma. But if I only wanted a range, it will put a colon. So this means that, as you noticed, that D3 was separate, and then we put a range after it. So we put a comma to add those two together. And now everything between the E4 and H4 has a colon. So that says everything in here will actually be added together. And then it will be added to the first number, and then it will be added to the next range, and then the next one. So just keep in mind that there is what they call a syntax. It's the way something must be entered, a very specific format. But you know, the good thing is you always get this tooltip below it that shows you what you need to do as well. So this makes it really, really simple. And the other thing, of course, was, and I'm just going to remove those for a moment. And we'll just get rid of those calculations. Fantastic. I'm just going to bring it down a little bit. Okay. I can actually put that sum back in again. And as I said, I could use this little function key, or I can use the epsilon key here, or I can go to formula and choose the auto sum, or I can insert a function. So there are many ways of inserting the same thing. There's my sum. I click OK. And because there are numbers down here, you and I have discovered we can be really lazy. Okay, all we have to do is come here and fill it. So I double click on that little tiny square, and it fills them all up. And because they're all basically the same number, it gives me the same results. So if I change some of these, let's make that a 9. Let's make that a 10. You notice as soon as I've actually pressed anything, it automatically changes the numbers. So these are dynamic, and they actually will add up for me. And if I actually put in another one here, I'll put in sum again. There you go. It now notices that there are numbers directly above it. And of course, I can drag this across if I want to. I can even take it all the way, and it will add everything up. There you go. So now it adds all of them. 255 in total. Remember, it was 253, but I made some changes. 252, I made some changes to it. And once again, if those totals are in the way, remember, I can drag it down and remove those. I can move that anywhere I want it to be. And if you and I decided, wait a minute now, I would really prefer this to be vertical instead, well, you and I already know that we can do that as well. We can just make sure that it's selected, okay, and we can go back to the Home tab, and we can go back to paste once we copy it, okay, and then we can change the direction of it entirely.
Michael?
Yep, that's me.
If you went ahead and added a row and you added some additional numbers in there, is it smart enough to adjust the formula?
Yes, it is. If I add a row in here.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just say, let me get rid of what I just put in there, by the way. Okay, so let's say I put a new row in here. I'll just insert a brand new row. Do you want to put data in here or not?
Yes. So if you add numbers in there, is it changing the formula?
Okay. So I'll put in 5, and we'll just copy 5 across. How's that? There you go. And now all I have to do is just copy this formula down. And at the bottom here, if I want to, again, here, you notice it's gone up to 295. So the formula at the end here has actually gone up. Let me just put that back in there so we can guarantee that that's the right number. It is. So 295. Remember, this row here was actually underneath. So it's remembered exactly what it was calculating. So if I take those 5s back out again, okay, if I take these back out, do you see the dynamics?
Yeah.
Okay, so when I actually make modifications to it, it will automatically change. It will put in everything but the formula. I'll have to add the formula, but it's easy enough. We just simply grab that and we paste it above it, and it will automatically change. Remember the one thing I told you yesterday, which is actually a very important element within formulas. And that is, if I chose this one column, and let me just open it up. I double click on it so that I can see it. It says D4 to K4, and it's on the 4th line. But when I copy that formula down, the formula will increment because it's going down the column. It will actually increment the column, the row. So if I click here, it should be now D5 and K5. So let me click on this one, and there it is, D5, K5. Next one is line number 6. So if I click on the formula there, whoops, it would have been useful if I accepted that value first. Okay, so if I click on this one, it says 6 and 6. So let me give you another key. Whoops, I went and did it again, didn't I? When a formula is open, don't click on anything else, just press enter. So if I wanted to see all the formulas that are in this page, okay, there's a key combination you can use, and it will allow you to turn on the formulas and turn off the formulas. So right now I have some formulas here. I'm just going to remove these ones because they're going to get in the way in a moment. So I just want to see what these formulas say. And to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press down the Alt key, or actually the Control key, and I'm going to hit tilde. Now, tilde on your keyboard is the very first key at the top that has a wavy line. Okay, there's a wavy line at the top, and it's the very first key just in front of number 1. And if I hold the Control key down and I press that, it will show me all of the formulas. So there's all the formulas. And I can now see them. If I click on any one of them, it obviously shows me by highlighting them which data is actually being selected for it. And of course, once I've finished, if I don't need to see them anymore, then the easiest approach is just hold down Control and click on that tilde symbol again, that little wavy line, and that'll turn them off. So you can actually see your formulas very quickly and very easily. There is another approach as well, but that's the quickest way, is using the keyboard. And you'll be able to see your formulas. Did they work? Didn't they work properly? Let me go back to Flash Fill here again. And let's go back one more because we don't have anything there. Do I have formulas here? Yes, I do. Good show. So let's take a look at this first page that I gave you. And once again, Control and tilde. And of course, now I can see all the formulas here. If you're running into problems with your formulas, you may actually want to take a good look at them. You know, like, what is this relying upon? For the gross pay, where's it coming from? And where's that coming from? So if it's actually coming from this cell, okay, then I want to know, when I click on here, where's that coming from? Okay, and if I click on this cell, where's that information coming from? And when I click on this one, where's that coming from? So if you find that you have errors, and what I used to do a long time ago was put in 1 and 1, and then put my formulas in, and if it didn't come up to 2, I had a problem, and I could now look at all the formulas and see where was the error. So sometimes turning on the formulas is to your advantage to see what's going on. And then, of course, once again, Control and tilde, and we can turn them off again. But they're still active in the background. Fantastic. Now, there was one other thing I wanted to show you. I'm just going to do that very quickly here. I don't think I can move that. I can't move it, sorry. Okay, so when I press the ALT key, okay, so when I press the ALT key on the keyboard, and I hold it just for a second and then I release it, you'll notice that right off the bat, very specific things happen. It begins to identify all your tabs. And it also identifies some of your let's say quick access toolbar with numbers, but the tabs at the top will always be letters. Now let's just say that my mouse was not working. For some reason I ran into a problem with the mouse. So I press the ALT key on the keyboard and it shows me these, and I want to use insert. So I can go to N, press N on the keyboard, and it jumps down into the ribbon for insert. And now everything is, again, given some kind of identifier. Well, if I want to put a table in, or let's say, what else do I have here that I could put in? Oh, I can put a chart. So I can put a chart in. So I'll say C1. So I'll type in C1. And now it shows me the charts. And here it says I can have more if I want them, or I can simply use my keyboard to move around and decide which one I would like to have. And this is based on the data that's in that particular chart, in that particular table. So we could choose, I like the 3D. 3D is nice. Let's choose 3D. And when I press enter, I get my little chart here. Now we're going to talk about charts later on, but just to give you an idea that the ALT key, if you don't have the mouse functioning properly, is always available to you. Now, there's one other thing here. I'm just going to change my desktop, so don't disconnect. I'm going to disconnect for you here for a moment, and then I'm going to reconnect. Fantastic. So you should see my desktop again, this time with all your cute little faces. Fantastic. This is a dartboard. Is that what this is? Fantastic. So here I have this screen. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is because I do have two screens. And when I'm using certain functions, they jump over to the other screen. And in this case, one of the functions I wanted to show you is not available on the other screen. So when I press down, if let's say, for instance, I do not have the mouse functioning very correctly, what I can do is press the ALT key and hold down the tab key. The tab key, when I click on it, will show me all the programs running in the background. And if I want to switch between them, I can do that quickly and easily simply by, let's say I want to go to Cengage. I have it open right now. So if I click on it, it is open in the background, but let me do that another way. In this case, if I now press tab and I tab across to Cengage and I release the ALT key, it automatically opens it up and it logged me out. Isn't that nice? I hate Cengage. Okay, let's come back to it. So once again, if I press tab, I can then jump to the program that I want to be visible on the screen. So the ALT key, when you don't have your keyboard functioning very well, you can jump around quickly and very easily. There are many different ways of doing this. On a Macintosh, for anyone using a Macintosh, instead of the ALT key for that function, you can use Option. Okay, so Macintosh is a little bit different, but it's a very valid operating system as well. So there are some functions that I may not be totally aware of, but Jane Rampu is capable of answering all of your questions on that.
It's Ramroop.
Rampu. What did I say? Rampu? Okay. So Rampu, this is her face here. You'll see it popping up there for a second. So just get your dartboard out. There you go.
Thanks, Jane, for the Mac option, because I have
You're
Mac
welcome.
and sometimes it becomes really a problem, you know. Thank you.
Fantastic. So Jane is your two-person if you need her. Fantastic. So let me switch back to the other screen again. Fantastic. And there we're back. Okay. So once again, there's lots of options here. I really do want you to play a little bit. Now, one thing to keep in mind, in G, I actually have all kinds of formulas. But remember, I said this before, when you literally move something, and I'll move it over, well, let's move it down a little bit as well. I moved it out of the way, but those formulas are still connected to the original data. So if I wanted to create a report, and I could take a little section here and I could make it into a report, I can move that data anywhere I want to. In fact, I can duplicate it, I can copy it, and I can have that information incorporated within it. Now, I usually do this anyhow, and I do it with mail merge, but in this case, we could actually use Excel into mail merge, or we could just simply create a report here. So because of that, and because I've selected it, I'm going to leave it selected. I'm going to do one other thing for you, and we're going to go to File. Whenever I click on File at the top, this is called the Backstage. So we're going to go to the Backstage for a moment, and I'm going to go down here to Print. Now, in Print, there are a number of options. Right now, you can see that the entire selection is chosen. But what if I only want what I've selected on the page? Excel's a little different. I can then come in here and choose just the selection. So just that one column per se. Of course, I can change the scaling. Let's just say I want it to fit. So I can actually play around a little bit and make it fit a little bit better. Again, I can choose the entire workbook, which is quite a few pages here. It says 5 pages in total, or I can choose just that one sheet that I was working on. And more specifically, just the section I wanted. So let me jump back here and I'll change the section. Here's a section that I want. So let's just choose that section, but not the rest of it. You don't need to see that. So I'm going to print it. And we come back to it and it says I want to choose my selection. And now I can only see that section of it. Now there's another option here as well. And that is we may decide we only want certain things. So maybe just the names and just the hours. But instead of printing it just as section, what I can do is I can print according to the area. And this means whatever changes take place in here will always be printable. So I'll just select it, set the print area, and it's going to select just this area here. If I click away from it, it's got an extra dark line around it. And then when I go to print, it should be just those two columns. So I'll go back here to print. Okay, and I'll choose the active sheet. And you notice there's only two columns now because I've set the printable area. Out of that entire 7 columns, I've chosen just 2 of them. So this is actually something that is possible when you actually want to print something. Now, one other thing I wanted to touch upon, and that was for the Save As option. So let me go back here. When you want to save a document, you have choices to make. And I'm not changing the name here, I'm just changing the extension. The one thing I want you to remember is at the end of every file, there is a dot, a decimal place, and then there is an extension of 3 to 4 characters. What that is called a MIME type. You've seen the guy who's trying to get out of the wall, so to speak, or trying to get out of the box. Well, that's called a MIME, and so is those extensions. They're called MIME types. What a MIME type is defines what program the computer should open in order to see the content of the file. So if you have the wrong extension, you won't be able to see the content very well. So when you're saving, there's a little axiom, a little rule I want you to remember. The very first option is the current version of the product. So in this case, this happens to be the current version of Excel. However, there are alternatives. The one that says macro, you don't need to use because it requires a little bit of programming in the background, but macros can actually eliminate a lot of keystrokes. They can do a lot of functions by themselves. Binary, we won't worry about. Excel, not every company is willing to pay Microsoft for the newest version. So there's a lot of older versions out there. And unfortunately, they don't use the same extension. And they don't have the same functionality. So some of the options you might be using are not available in some of the older versions. So you have to choose an older version when you recognize that people may not have the same version you have. And there are several levels of that. So 97 up to 2003, anyone with those versions would be able to open the document if you saved it with that option. So you would click on that and your file would be saved that way. But there are a lot of other options here, web pages. As in Word, Excel also can create a web page. So it's a very rudimentary, it's not a very advanced web page, but it does have that capability. And also there are other things like templates. You may actually create very specific forms that you intend to change the content of. Now, we will deal with this much later, but there is another type of file called a comma delimiter file. What a comma delimiter file is it doesn't have all the rectangles. So it doesn't have individual cells. So how do you actually separate them? You separate each one of the fields, each one of the cells per se, with a comma. And as long as you follow that throughout the document, you can import one of these comma delimiter files into a regular, let's say, Excel document, and it will understand it. Now, there's another program called Access, and we'll deal with that one much, much later, but it too can use comma delimiter files. A lot of other programs can use this as well. So just keep those ones in mind. There is one last one, and that's a PDF document. I've mentioned this before. I'm going to mention it again. A PDF document can be read on any computer in the world. Doesn't matter what platform, what software you have, it can read it. but it would normally be, if you didn't have Adobe on your computer, it would normally be read inside of a browser. The browsers have an extension that can read it, so it can be read anywhere in the world. That's one of its greatest advantages. Piece of cake. So any questions so far? Some of you have started the training, some of you have not. Just want to make sure that you are going into that training and you are spending some time on it and making sure that you're starting into your project as well. Do not get behind in your projects. They're worth quite a bit. It's 40%. So you definitely want to make sure you're putting an effort into those as well. So any questions so far? If you're wondering why I'm looking in that direction all the time, it's because I'm looking at the chat as well.
Michael.
That's me.
Can I use the password and ID for keyboarding from my previous classes?
Yes, you can. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Michael, can we go to the flash fill tab? I was a little confused on one part there. Okay, so under the product woman man section.
Okay, yep. This one?
Yes, can you delete the autofill that you did and redo it?
Sure. And redo
So
it again?
Yeah, so if you just put W and then M and then fill, for some reason mine didn't come up with the correct information. I think it was confused with the first letter of the product.
Okay, so if I just use the one line, it would have difficulty. It would assume that I wanted the first character. In fact, let me do that. It would assume I want the first character of every word here. So most of them are S and then there's a W. So it should be W and S, etc. Let me just go to fill. So there's my flash fill. So it assumes that it's S and it's W. Let's just zoom that up. So if I wanted to make sure that it recognizes that there is some other place where it's very similar, I would have to put that M in there as well. So let me put in the M. And now I'll select all of this again. So it basically has something it can work on. Oops, we got an eyeball there. Fantastic. Okay, so now I actually have this here that I can use. And I can again do a flash fill. So let's just do a flash fill. Does that make sense?
Yes, can you try typing in for the first one, woman, and then doing it that way? Yeah, so actually typing.
But woman doesn't exist.
So it won't do.
Only the W exists. If I typed in woman and then I typed in man and stuff like that, then I could actually use the first character. But again, it's going to come up with the first character. I would have to type in, well, let me do that. Okay, so let's just type it in. Okay, so there's woman, and let me just copy that. Okay, and down here, we'll put it in at the end as well. And we'll paste it, and we'll come down here, and I'll paste that. And down here, we'll paste it here. And down here, we'll paste it here. And then, of course, I'm going to change the M to man. And I'll do the same thing. However, keep in mind that it would bring back only the first initial if I didn't actually tell it what to bring back. So let me just put this in here and this one here as well. Okay, so in this case here, if I put in woman, and below this I put in man, because it's going to notice that there is a difference between the two. Otherwise, it just comes back with the initial. So in this case here, I can do the same thing. This is what I'm looking for. and I'll flash fill it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. But I don't know why, but I thought it would be smart enough to associate when I put in woman that it would associate with the W from the other column.
No, because once you put in a W, it's going to automatically go back here, and it will take the W and then the S and then the S after that. Fantastic. Look at that. There's a ceiling there. It's Kiana. Uh-oh, somebody's sleeping. Fantastic. Okay, wakey, wakey. Natasha, wake up.
This is funny.
Natasha, you can't hide. Okay. So any other questions?
I have a
Thank you,
question.
Michael.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, so my question is, where will we receive our grades for last class?
For the last class, sometime this week.
You know exact day?
I can't tell you. I can only tell you that on Friday, my computer died. And it wasn't until Sunday morning that I actually got it running again. So I worked on it for literally 40 some hours to get it up. It was a major crash, and I literally lost about 2 terabytes of information. So it's probably going to be sometime near the end of the week, and you'll see your grades at that point.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do is let you go back to Cengage. I definitely want you to make sure that you are working on your project, get that finished, and go over the training that we've gone over yesterday and today, and also make sure you're going through the training there because you get marks for it. And if you're not actually getting those marks, you're going to find that it's difficult to pass the course because you need those extra marks. So don't take it lightly. Make sure that you stay on target and get things going. Tomorrow, when you log in, we have a whole new area that we're going to approach. So we have lots of additional training that we're going to explore. And of course, Cengage has the quiz for today and yesterday, and also some new training as well. So lots of things adding up. You want to stay on target. Okay, so I'll let you go. I'm still here till 12 o'clock, so if you need me, just jump back in again.
Thanks, Michael. Have a
Okay,
great
thank
day,
you, Michael.
everyone.
Have a good day.
Yep,
You
take
too,
care.
Michael.
Thank you, Michael. Nice day.
Yep.
Michael,
That's me again.
so say for example, did I do well in that last class?
I haven't checked yet.
Can you check?
Did you submit everything?
Yes.
You did?
Yes.
Let me log back in there. Hold on.
Hi, Michael.
Most things. I'll say, Michael, most things.
This is not good.
Not good.
You got to submit everything.
Yeah, I know.
Hi, Michael.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a question. Will you be uploading the modules?
The modules for what?
For the readings, like, you have to read first, then the training sometimes, and you just do the activity.
Oh, in the book itself?
I believe so. I think it's in teams usually, the modules, and then Cengage has the readings that you do with the modules.
Yes, actually, it should be there in resources.
Okay.
Under file.
Resources, okay. Okay, okay. I got it. Thank you.
Because the projects are kind of hard for me, Michael.
You still have to do the projects.
I still have to do it. But I did the quizzes. I did the what was it? The training. So if it's hard for me, you could help me out with that, right? Like, say for example, if I have any questions or things like that, you could
absolutely,
help me.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we cover it over the video as well, right? So whatever you record, I can look back on it.
They're already there.
At resources, right?
That's right.
Okay, I'll give it a try, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, you have to focus on it. Send an email to Stephen as well.
Okay.
And ask him for a tutor.
Not yet. He said that the tutor is not because of we're doing remote. I did send him an email about it. He told me not yet. There's no tutoring right now. He said that when we go back to class in the future, there could be tutoring, but not at this moment.
Okay, I'll check and see what I can find as well.
I did discuss that with him.
Okay. Just give me a minute.
But I think Excel training is much easier for me.
Hopefully.
Because Word is kind of word training, because I'm most comfortable with the Excel training. Like I have areas that I'm very good at, and some areas that I'm not, right? Like everyone has.
Okay.
So yeah, but Excel is I'm much comfortable with that.
So
than Word.
Natasha, you didn't do the projects for Word.
No, I didn't.
And you didn't do the final test.
I did do that.
No, you didn't. It come up with a 0 here. What did you do?
I thought I did.
I got a couple of people who didn't do something here. According to this, neither the projects nor the final.
Okay.
And somebody else didn't do the projects either.
Michael?
That's me.
I have a question. In Cengage, what is I didn't get, nobody sent me the product key for the new program course for the Excel. I just still have Word in there.
But you were here yesterday, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
Didn't I actually put it into the chat for you guys?
I believe so. Let me double check, because I looked in yesterday. I didn't see it. I'll check again, okay?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did. I put it in the chat, the key. I'll put it in again. Just give me a minute.
You have to scroll up, Christopher.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so Natasha, did you get it, Christopher, before I go on?
No, not yet, no.
So plug that code in when you get to it.
Okay, I will.
Okay. I'll just throw it in the chat again. Just give me 1 second to copy it.
There we go.
You got it?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good show. Natasha, I have to talk to Uzma, because from what I'm looking at here, let me open that up again somewhere here.
Yeah.
You didn't put in a lot of stuff. This is, I'm not sure what to tell you, to be quite honest with you, because
of the projects and the exam, right? The final exam.
Yeah.
But I thought I did the final exam.
It's come up here with 0, which means it wasn't done.
Okay.
Okay, so it's not done. I have to make arrangements for you to redo it,
Okay, thank you.
but I have to get through to Uzma so that she can record it. The other thing here is your projects.
That was harder. That was hard for me, so I couldn't do it.
Well, you've got projects in Excel too. That's a big mark. When you take all 4 of those together, that's 40%.
Okay. So, but can I redo the exam so I could boost up my grades?
Yes. When do you want to do it? Today or tomorrow?
When?
Actually, tomorrow's
Go ahead.
not. Let me get in touch with Uzma first. She'll figure out what day is the best day.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll get back to you on
So
that.
if I do well on the exam and I pass the exam, then how will my grades look? I got like high marks with the quizzes and the training. So if I get like a passing mark on my exam, would I be passing?
If you pass, it'll be just barely, but you have to do extremely well on the final exam.
Extremely well.
Extremely well.
Okay.
Okay, so let me get to Uzma and then I'll get back to you.
Okay, and I'll study for
That's a
the
good idea.
the exam.
And
Take notes
Excel.
and things. And the Excel.
And Excel.
Okay, so the project. What's the first project like?
What do you mean the first project?
For the Excel.
For Excel, why don't you open it and take a look?
I have to wait until 5. Make sure. Oh, my